Hey guys, I'm Alex and this is the first YouTube video I'm making. I'm making it because some people asked me about the way I made my bust of Mordin Solus, the techniques I use, the materials I use, and so on. Here's the actual bust, the finished version of it. Uh, it's made out of plaster, but I'm getting into that a little later. Um, Sorry if my accent is weird. I'm Romanian. I'm not a native English speaker, so this is the best I can do. And sorry if my lighting conditions aren't really that good. This is pretty much the best I can do with the light sources in my room. So let's get started. This is the original version of the sculpture. It's made out of oil clay. The oil clay I used is called Jovi or Jovi or oh there or whatever you pronounce it. It's just a random brand I found at my local art supply store. It wasn't really cheap. Well, actually, it was pretty cheap. It wasn't really expensive. It was about $3, half a pound, or somewhere about there. And it held the details fairly well. I can say I'm pretty pleased with it. It has a very good end result, and considering its low price, quite a good brand. I'm not sure if it's as good as Chavant or as good as Monster Clay because I didn't try them yet, but they're considerably more expensive, so I don't know what to say about that. But after I'm going to uh, work with those clays, I'll be able to make a comparison review of sorts between these versions. As you can see, this one isn't really elastic because it's kind of dried out. It's a little bit crumbly. I forgot it out on my balcony in the sun, so this is why it behaves like this. Usually it's a little more elastic, and it's okay to use. You just have to work it a little bit before being able to use it. You don't have to heat it in an oven or anything like that. It's okay. It's an okay type of oil clay. The oil clay was put on top of steel wire armature. Here you can see a part of it. Um, I used steel wire with a thickness of about 1.3 or 1.4 millimeters. I have no idea how much is that in inches. Um, but yeah, I tried to make it as solid as I could so it wouldn't wobble and move all over the place while I sculpt. The armature has to be really stable and um, well, actually, it has to be the skeleton of the the sculpture, and with a weak skeleton, you can't really go far. After I completed the armature, I started blocking out the shapes, the main shapes, the head and the neck, and then I went on into sculpting the shoulders and chest area and everything. I started with the head because I didn't know if it's going to be a portrait or if it's going to be a bust. Because I made the head fairly small, I thought that I should make a bust and show a little bit of his suit as well. The suit isn't 100% accurate. The original one has a hole around here and some material that goes from here to here. I didn't want to make that particular detail because I wanted to make a mold out of it, and it was the first time I ever made a silicone mold, and I wanted to keep things as simple as I could. Uh, without complicating stuff too much, so I decided to drop that. And I also gave up on the metal thing that comes around here, pretty much for the same reason, because I had to make it out of completely different material like super sculpey or something, and the mold would have had to be separate, and it would have eaten up a lot of material, and it just wasn't worth it. If you can see, this version, the oil clay version, took quite a beating because I forgot it on my balcony in the sun, and the oil clay started drying out a little bit. So yeah, the tools I used were mainly my hands, and I used some other sculpting tools. I might make a different video on it. After I made the mold, here's the mold. It's a two-part mold, a silicone mold covered with plaster mother mold to make it stronger and make it last more. I won't talk too much about the mold making process because it's not really extremely complicated, but I'm not going to be able to explain it in just this video. After that I cast plaster. I used plaster, and I didn't use resin because the budget was not very great, and plaster is way cheaper than resin. I can say I'm very pleased by the way the modeling plaster I used behaved. Truth is, I did cast about 3 or 4 Mordins before I got this one without any air bubbles and big imperfections, but after I figured out how liquid the plaster should be when I pour it and how to get out the air bubbles, everything was okay, and it's a very good and cheap alternative to resin. After I finished casting it, I had to sand it down a little bit and carve it a little, and touch up some places here and there, and work a little bit more on the texture and stuff like that. And then I applied some primer. The primer I used is this. It's not some known brand or whatever, it's just some white paint that I used as a primer. After that I painted it with acrylics. I only used brushes because I don't have an airbrush. The colors I used are not sure if I remember them all, but I used some vermilion red and carmine red, and some burnt sienna, some ochre, yellow ochre, some titanium white, and some glossy black paint, black acrylic paint. Then I combined it, all of them, and tried to get the skin as detailed as I possibly could and get as many tones in it as I could, considering that I only worked with brushes and not with an airbrush. Tried to make the tones as subtle as I could and make it look as best as I possibly could, because that's the whole point in sculpting, giving your best, and any sort of artwork, at least in my opinion. I won't explain what dry brush is. I might talk about it in another video or not. There are other videos in YouTube that explain the process very well. I also used some glazing on it to make the wrinkles pop out more. And that's pretty much it. I covered the suit with a layer or two, I think a layer of lacquer to make it shinier. And that's pretty much everything I did to it. Oh yeah, and I used some metallic acrylics for the metallic parts. I'm not sure if you can see it very well in the video, but I'm pretty pleased with the color. I don't know, it's not exactly what I expected from it, but then again I couldn't try it in the art supplies store, so have to deal with it. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. There are some dots around his head, which I made with this brush. This is the brush I'm using for a dry brush. Um, I just dipped the tip of it into some paint, and then gently applied it from here to here and made some dots. I didn't want to use like a sprinkling technique or whatever you call it when you do this, just because I wanted to have a little bit of control on it, and this way I could apply paint where I wanted to, not where the paint drops decide to fly. This is pretty much what I can say about it. As I said, I used steel armature, oil clay, plaster, and acrylics, and also I used some demolding agent or mold release agent. It's don't really know the brand. It says NUS here, NUS or whatever. But it did its job and I'm pretty pleased. Oh, and I actually used some Vaseline when I made the plaster cast, but actually the plaster mold I won't talk about that either, because there's not much time. I don't want to bore the heck out of you while you're watching this, because it's not really that interesting of a video, but this is the best I can do, so yeah. That's all of it. I'm going to link my DeviantArt gallery and Facebook album with sort of step-by-step way this sculpture evolved. If you're interested, click on the links below. As I said, I'm Alex, and hope you find something useful in this video. If you have any questions, you should post them in the comment section, and have a nice day. Hope to see you guys really soon. Bye bye.